All right, everybody. Welcome to the HR and Leadership Spotlight Show. By way of New Jersey in Savannah, Georgia, I have my guest today. She is a career HR professional. She is an international traveler. She's also a speaker, national seminar speaker on pretty much any topic you could imagine in regards to human resources, employment law, supervision, and leadership. She is currently an HR consultant in addition to her speaking gigs, and she specializes in employee relations. I am so excited to bring probably one of the most enthusiastic people that I've dealt with in the HR realm. Very, very passionate, I would say. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Liza Dunn. Liza, how you doing today?
Hello. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. This is an
Excellent.
honor.
Excellent. Oh, it's very exciting to have you. And Liza, you and I have worked together on and off on different projects. We've collaborated on some speaking gigs together. And so I'm just thrilled to have you on the show. Liza, as I had said, our logo is the coffee cup, and the microphone. So what do you got for us today? What mug? You got anything?
All right. Well, besides this mug, I've got this mug.
I
It's a
love
Les
that.
Mis mug. It was a gift to me by my daughter, who I introduced to the theater. And ever since, she's been hooked on it. And she sent me this mug.
Awesome. That is cool. So I think that's great when you can take someone to the theater, inspire them, and they move forward through life with that little bit of remembrance that they're going to have of you and a mom and daughter at the theater like that. So I know you are great at creating memories, not just with your daughter, but you are great at creating memories in classes, in speaking gigs, and affecting change. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey, a little bit more about who you are and how you got to where you are right now?
Sure. Well, when I was in college, my major was marketing, actually. And I had an opportunity to work study in the personnel department. And what I observed is that those people had power. Like, they didn't have the title, but there seems to be a lot of power in the personnel department. When people came into that department, whether they were a secretary or the director of marketing or the VP, they just had a respect for the personnel department. And I observed that and I said, you know what? I like this. I like being behind the scenes. I like knowing what's going on behind the scenes in an organization. And I changed my major to, at that time, it was personnel and industrial relations.
Okay, right.
Yeah. And I loved it. I love the classes that I was taking, and other than one career opportunity, every position I've ever had, every job I've ever had has been in HR, and I loved it. The only one thing that I did in life many years ago was I was a flight attendant for Tower Airlines out of New York. That's where I got a lot of that international travel from.
Okay.
So other than that, it's been HR all the way, and I've grown and I've learned and I've brought a lot of stuff with me as a consultant and an HR trainer and speaker. So yeah, a lot of my stuff was just learning through the trenches.
That's awesome. So you, and I'm going to just say this, I've been in HR 25-ish years, right? I meet a lot of HR people, and I have to tell you, I don't meet a lot of HR people with I guess the word would be panache, right? In a way, you're so different when you're speaking, when you're describing human resources. I've seen and maybe it's your marketing background. I've seen where you've just taken pieces of paper in a webinar virtually and held up simple words to describe very complex subjects. So I'm just wondering, how have you developed that type of style? I love that style. Tell me more about your style.
As I started off with talking about my mug in the theater, when I was in school, I was in the theater. I did plays. My very first play was the Blue Fairy in Pinocchio. So there's a certain part of me that is very animated. I like the acting ability. So yeah, I discovered that in my classes when I teach, when I'm training, if I could, well, first of all, I do a lot of role playing, but if I could get them to see things, it wasn't just me talking all day long, but if I could get them to see things, and you mentioned complex subject, FMLA can be a complex subject. And one day I was trying to get through to the audience how you could run FMLA concurrent with other PTO. And they just weren't getting it until I grabbed a piece of paper and I wrote FMLA. It's your pass, your hallway pass. You know, when you're in school and you've got to leave out of the room and you need a hallway pass, this is your hallway pass. It doesn't have any other value other than to let you get out of the room. And then I said, but if you're walking out and you want some money in your pocket, that's PTO. And then I wrote down another piece of paper and then I showed them, I grabbed both pieces of paper and showed them how it can run concurrent. And as I was doing this, I could see the light bulbs going off. Oh, I get it now. I get it now. So I do that. I'm quite animated in my classes. I do a lot of role playing. And when you role play, what I have found is that the person I'm role playing with, they may not totally grasp it, but everyone else around, when they see it and they hear it and they could tell, you know, we change some words. I'm like, okay, what's the word that you use? That's what you use. Let's turn that around and let's say we, or let's say this. And I could see everyone else's, the light bulbs are going off. Now, the reason I mentioned that the particular person that I'm using as the example may not totally get it. It's like when you are watching a game show at home and to you, it's so obvious the answer, but the
Right.
person who's in the game show is like, oh, I don't know, right? So
Right.
that happens a lot of times. So
That's
yeah, that's one of the things that I do in the classroom. I try to be animated when it's necessary. I'll use different things, write words down. I'll walk around the room. I'll use the people in the audience, my attendees as examples. So it's very interactive.
right. And so you've done a lot of live classes, but like myself, in March, we were all called back from the road and you've had to transition that style online virtual classes.
Yeah,
And I've
for
caught a
sure.
few of those and I thought they were pretty cool. I think you've still captured some of that magic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know what? I didn't think it would be as much fun, but honestly, I had a great time. And I had an opportunity to learn from others. There were other trainers that I was learning from, just like you. I was watching
Mhm.
their style and I was picking up little things. And the one thing that I picked up, and this is for everyone out there, if you're doing a webinar and you're training, make sure you get a lot of involvement. And most people think, well, you can't do that. How can you do that? You can't see the people. Yeah, but you can see their questions, you can see their comments. You really got to get people involved. And one of the ways to get them involved is to talk about things they like, you know, ask them about their town and their sports, you know, in their town or their high schools or whatever it is that you can say or do to get the audience involved.
Right.
So yeah, I learned that from another trainer.
That's cool. So so in addition to speaking, you're doing HR consulting, correct?
Yes.
So
Yes.
tell me a little bit about the type of consulting that you're doing.
Well, I'm working with smaller companies, and when I mean by smaller, depending on how large of a company you work with, 500 and less to me is a smaller company. And what I'm doing is helping management to see the bigger picture for their employees. So many times we're just focused, or managers are just focused on getting the employees to do their work.
Mhm.
And really, if you want your company to change, you really have to get your employees involved in what the company is about in terms of the service, their customers, really get the employee involved, not just the everyday mundane job, but where's the company going? Why are we picking a particular service or a particular product?
Mhm.
Really get the employee involved. And I think the more you can get the employee involved, the greater change you will see. You'll see more buy-in from the employees. In a lot of my classes, I talk about companies like Chick-fil-A and Trader Joe's, right? Because those employees are just like over the top.
Right.
It's just like, oh, sometimes they're too over the top. You know, being from Jersey, sometimes I want to tell them, hey, take it down a couple of notches and just give me my chicken sandwich, right? Not all this, how can we, worship you kind of stuff.
Right.
But those employees understand the concept of the company. They really do. It's not just from a service point of view. They understand the concept. And if companies really want to change, you've got to get the employee involved. I think we say that with lip service,
Mhm.
but if you're serious about the company changing, spend time and let it trickle down to the line employee.
Yeah. So how, when it comes, and I know when it comes to getting employees involved,
Mhm.
it sometimes can be challenging, right? And so when you're doing that, what are some techniques? I guess you're doing some sort of, training and stuff, but what are some techniques or maybe some steps or things that you're using that you found successful to make that affect that change, to make that transition
Okay.
for people?
Well, let's talk about hotels, for example.
Okay.
So you'll have a hotel. One of the things that I've worked with companies is if they've had front desk staff or even house cleaning staff or even the catering staff, and they just can't seem to get the staff to make some changes in terms of customer service and the service that they're giving the employees. One of the best things you can do for your employees is to send them to a hotel that has superior customer service. Like
Okay.
let them stay the night in the room, experience the restaurant, experience the service. There is something about experience that from a consumer point of view that can change your mind rather than management just telling you this is what we need to do and this is how we need to service our
Oh,
customer.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have found that companies that do that, when the employees come back, they really do come back with a different mindset. They have elevated their mindset or concept of customer service, of what they want. And then it's easier to translate that over to serving other people.
Hmm. So it's kind of like being in the game show. You're in the game show and you're so busy trying to figure out the answers. You don't see a lot of what's going on around you. You're in the game, you're in operations. Every day something's going on. But if you can break away, it's almost like being a secret shopper in a way,
Yeah, oh,
right?
for sure. Remember the show Secret Boss, or what was that show?
Undercover
Hidden.
boss, right?
Yeah, that was the example. And it was just the other way around. Instead of the boss being out there undercover, it's the employees going somewhere else and experiencing customer service or just experiencing another company. So that's highly effective. It really has to reach into that individual. We call them employees, but what are they? Human beings. It has to reach into that human being. They need to understand that concept.
Good.
So a lot of times, yeah, I talk to the companies and the managers about those type of changes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's great. So you're able to affect change like that. I know, and I got to tell you folks, Liza, I sat in one of her classes one time and she's talking to a bunch of HR folks. I think it was HR for those people, newbies, we'd call them, new
Mhm.
people that had just become HR professionals. Maybe they were the front desk receptionist, maybe they were the office manager, maybe they were the accounting clerk, but someone went to them and said, we want you to be an HR person. So people are in the class and Liza is laying everything out that they need to be successful HR professionals in their new role. And someone raises their hand and says, I'll never be able to do any of this stuff because our owner won't let us. I can't convince him how to, and it was anything involving the laws or legalities, right? And things like that, things that needed to be changed. And I love, you had a 3, 4, 5 step process.
Yes.
And I was just
Yes.
wondering if you could share that with the group on how to affect change. And I'll tell you what, Liza, I use it in my classes, but I definitely give you credit.
Thank you. Thank you. So a lot of times HR professionals will say the business owner doesn't want to make a change because it's their company and they want to do things their way. And then I always say, don't worry, I'm going to show you how to talk to a business owner. So the number one thing you have to know when you're talking to a business owner, and my question is to you, What are business owners in business to do?
Right.
Make money. And everyone would say, well, make money. Absolutely. And thank goodness for it. So make sure, number one, when you're talking to a business owner, you talk to them from a financial point of view. Now, everyone on the podcast, make sure you have your pen and paper handy and write these down. The number one thing is finances. When you're talking to a business owner, it doesn't matter whether you want to hire someone, terminate someone, you want to get new equipment, if it's employee morale, whatever it is, you want to talk to them from a financial point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, when you're talking to a business owner, you shouldn't do a whole lot of talking. You should do a whole lot of proving in writing what you're saying. Make sure you do your due diligence before you go into their office and you have all of the proof. So if you want to get new equipment, make sure you went out to a couple of different companies and you price things out. If you want to let go of an employee, let's say they're not doing a good job, make sure you can prove in writing how they're costing the company. If you want to hire someone, make sure you could prove in writing how it is a sound financial decision, how the money's coming into the company so you can afford to hire someone. Prove everything in writing. Number three, make sure that when you give the business owner a suggestion, make sure you are willing to do the work. Whatever that suggestion is, hey, I'm going to suggest we do this. Make sure you're willing to do the work, because if you're not, if the business owner says, yeah, go for it, Chuck, why don't you do that? And Chuck says, what? I don't have time to do that. Well, guess what? It may not happen.
Right.
And so you're going to lay these three out, right? So you're going to start off with going to the business owner. You're going to explain, for example, how this has a financial consequence to the company. You're going to show it in writing. And then you're going to say, hey, my suggestion is, then you're going to lay out your suggestion. And then finally, you're going to do this. After you have shown them what it's going to cost or how it's going to save the company, and you put it in writing, maybe there's a legality to it.
Right.
And
It
then
could be a legal liability. It could be something
right.
that's going to get them in trouble. They need to stop doing, maybe not start doing.
And if it is, have that in writing. The last thing you want to do is say to a business owner, you need to stop doing that, or you're not supposed to do that. What you're going to show the business owner in writing how there have been lawsuits, how companies have lost a significant amount of money because of this situation. You're going to show them in writing. And then you're going to calmly look them in the eye. And you're going to say, so what do you think? Now, not what do you think we should do, because you already told them what you should do. You're just going to say, what do you think? Meaning, what do you think about all of this information? The finances, the financial consequences, the fact that I'll do all of the work. What do you think? And then you're going to do a technique I call the zip and stare. You're going to zip your lips and you're going to stare at them and you're going to wait for them to answer you. And it's a powerful technique to just wait, because if you don't, a lot of times this is what we do. We look at them, we say, because if we don't do this thing is going to happen and the company's going to be in trouble, blah, blah. And before you know it, you frustrate the business owner. And when you frustrate business owners, they like to go back to what they were always doing. Now that's a technique, and you have to practice that, folks. It can feel intimidating to look at your boss and just go silent. Now, you're not doing this, because one time I said that and the guy was like, well, are you trying to intimidate them? You're not doing this to your boss, you're doing this.
Right.
Body language, watch the difference between, and like, what do you think, buddy?
You
Because
play
it's
that off
on you,
so well. That's awesome.
right? So yeah, and if you want to know more about that, come to one of my classes. I'm not going to give it all away today.
No, right. And in fact, as we wind, we still have some time, and but as we wind down in just a few minutes, I'm going to ask how people can get hold of you. But I want to go back to some of the things that you just said, because a couple things, and this is great if you're an HR person on this video, if you're watching or if you're on the podcast. Number one, Liza mentioned a few things, few buzzwords: financial, right? Money, and knowing basically how the company operates. How does the company make money? What are their financials like? I often tell HR folks, learn how to read a P&L statement. You've
That's right.
got to learn, because that will show that you're part of the business. You're strategizing, and it shows your if you just go in like you said, hey, I think we should do this and we should do that, and they look at you like you've got three heads.
And they
I know
will.
that frustrates so many HR people.
Yeah.
I know that frustrates them. So I love what you said. I love proving the due diligence, doing your research. That's just great stuff. It really is. It's
And you may
precious.
say, well, how did you learn that? I used to work for a family business, my families, and my father-in-law owned the business. And I was the HR manager, and I had to answer to my father-in-law. And he was a very strict guy, and he didn't play. If you came into his office, you better come in there with solutions. And so that's how I learned that technique. It's like, yeah, you go into his office with solutions,
Yeah.
and yeah.
No, it's funny. It's amazing how one person can affect a change in you, and then you take that forward. I used to work for a guy. I supported him as the field HR manager, and I would go in. I say, in operations, I'm the HR person for operations. Look, we need to start doing this, 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 and he would say, no, we're not going to do it. I'm thinking, what the heck? So I'd go back and I'd think about it, and I'd come back. I say, look, I really, I really want to talk to you. I really think you should. And he would say no. And so I got frustrated after a few times over the course of months that I worked for him. And one day he stopped after he said no. He said, Chuck, don't you get it? I said, get what? He said, I say no to everything. Now, granted, this may not be the best strategy in the world, but this is what this guy would do. He's a VP. He said, I say no to everything. I said, I'm looking at him like, I don't understand. He said, the deal is, if I say no to you and you go away and you come back and you push me again, and maybe you've rethought it and you push it with a new perspective, and I say no again, but if you come back a third time, I know you're really committed to it. I know you're really passionate about it. And so now I'm going to listen to you because I know you've thought it through a few times. And I thought, that's pretty brilliant. I mean, it's not the way I manage, but I thought that was kind of cool. So when I go in to pitch something, I try and do it so it's the first time out. I try and think it through as much as possible. And picking up a technique like you just shared, that's extremely valuable for folks, whether you're new or a seasoned professional. So I love that.
For sure.
I love that. So I know you specialize in employee relations. I also know you do coaching, right? You coach people, but you're looking to take your coaching and implement some things into that from almost a different direction. I've met a number of executive coaches, but you're taking more of a life coach approach, and you want to start adding in, and we talked about this, metaphysical health and wellness. And I was just wondering if you could talk about that and how that plays into some of your strengths that you're doing right now, how you're going to take that and move into that realm, so to speak.
Well, I love HR. I mean, I've been doing it for so long. I'm good at it. But I always say it's not my passion. It's just that I'm good at it. Like some people are good at being an accountant, but maybe that's not their passion. Like at night, they may be a comedian or, a musician. My passion is health and wellness. And I like to come at it from a metaphysical point of view. And by that, I mean, I do come at it from a traditional point of view, meaning, I take my supplements and exercise and I do cleanses. I probably do more than the average person. I'll do green juices and cleanses and teas. But I also come at it from a metaphysical point of view, meaning I will do meditation. I will also do visualization. You can, and there have been studies, scientific studies, that you can heal the body with visualization. A lot of sports figures will do that in terms of their game, in terms of healing certain parts of their body. And I've actually done it myself, and I've seen other people do it as well. Now, as I was saying to Chuck, to you, Chuck, earlier, you can take it from two different perspectives. I mean, there's, a wide range of areas that you can go into in terms of metaphysical. There's the quantum physics end, and then there's what I call the woo-woo end, or what people used to call it, back in the day, they would call it, new agey kind of stuff. But it works regardless of what end you take. It's the same path. It's healing the body through the mind, starting with your mind. And you could talk to your body. You can meditate through healing. You can visualize through healing. There's so many things that you can do. Now, that stuff, I will tell you, totally fascinates me. Because I've done it for myself for so many years, and I've seen other people, and I follow people who do this sort of thing. And it's going to be the wave of the future in terms of healing our bodies. And you will always have the extreme. You're going to always have the extreme people who want to do pills and, vaccines. And then there are a very strong group of people who are like, no, it's all in our mind. It really is in our mind. And you can change your body. You can actually change outside forces through the mind.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's my passion.
No, it's funny, and this is just a very simplistic example, but I know people that will say, I think I'm getting sick. I feel like this whole coronavirus thing, they might have gone out to the grocery store and they're like, oh my gosh, there's coronavirus everywhere. I'm getting sick. And they end up getting sick. Maybe not with coronavirus, but they end up getting, stomach ache, or they get a cold, or they get a headache. So I'm thinking, really? And that may be a very simplistic example, but of not healing yourself, but how your mind can change your physical body and take it in a direction.
And if you can do that in terms of saying you're sick, then you can do that in terms of saying you're well. Now, I want to give you a quick example of something that happened actually doing a webinar. I was doing a webinar, and I can't remember, I think it was someone named Christina that I was working with. And we were teaching a personality class. I don't recall which class it was, but she wanted to give an example of a sneaky fox. Now, a sneaky fox at work is that person who, is going to talk about other people, and it's going to, be a toxic person at work. And so she wanted to give that example. So when she introduced me, she wanted me to tell everyone my story of how I ended up in Savannah. And I gave a brief example of how I ended up in Savannah. And so then at lunchtime, she said, Liza, when we get back online, I'm give them an example of a sneaky fox. She said, I'm going to be that sneaky fox. And before you come back on the camera, I'm going to say, that story Liza told about how she got to Savannah. Well, that's not entirely true. And when she said that to me, we're over the phone, I was like, I don't want to do that. And she's like, no, this will give them a chance to really understand it. Now, she was the, presenter of the day. So I was like, I didn't feel well about it, but I was like, well, okay, do it. Let me tell you, when she was on camera and she was saying, that Liza, I don't think that's true how she got to Savannah. I was feeling bad. I was feeling so bad that when I got back on camera and she finally said, oh, I was just showing you the person, a sneaky fox, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, even though I said to everyone, I said, that's a true story, what I told you, how I got here. We were just giving you the sneaky fox.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I couldn't shake that feeling all day when she said that. Her words impacted me, even though we were giving it as an example and it wasn't true. She was just doing it as an example. The next morning I woke up and I said, wow, I always knew that words were powerful, but that example just blew me away. I was like, wow, look at that. We were acting.
Right.
And those words affected me all day long. It was like I couldn't shake that.
Right.
And it was a beautiful thing because the next morning, it just made my faith in how we speak, the words we say, even stronger.
Yeah. Words can have a huge impact in a lot of ways. So what I hear you saying is, and you've got 2 tracks. Someone wants to get hold of you from the HR consulting, the employee relations. You have the skills, the knowledge to offer that, but you also have skills and knowledge in another area to offer. And I actually see both things can come together at
Yes,
different points
for sure.
for moving forward. You're still helping people on
Yeah,
either end. So,
absolutely.
so why don't you, so if you could just share with us as we wind down our time, how could folks get in touch with you, and, you know, what would be the experience if they
Yeah.
did?
So there's there's only really two platforms that I am on because I'm such a private person that a lot of the work that I do is really word of mouth. I work with one client and they tell another client. I am on LinkedIn. You can reach me there. My Facebook is really just a business Facebook. So the best way to get hold of me is either through LinkedIn, or you could just directly email me. My email is ldunn, DUNN, at benefits dot, no, ldunn
That's okay.
dot benefits at gmail.com. ldunn.benefits@gmail.com. That's another great way to get a hold of me. And let me tell you, this is going so well. That's it. We're over
Yeah.
already. You got
Yeah,
to have me
believe it or
back
not.
on. You got to have me back on because I got so much more to
All
say.
right, I'll tell you what. How about in a few weeks we have you back on, because you have a lot to share.
I do.
I love talking to you. Ever since I first met you, I walked into your classroom unannounced, and I was just blown away. We've worked on projects together, collaborated. I
Yes.
just think you're wonderful. And folks,
Thank
if you're
you.
looking for a great HR person, and I'm talking about someone that is not just smiles and files, right? You know those HR folks, right? This is someone that can affect change and really make it happen. Liza, did I miss anything else? Is there anything you wanted to cover right now?
No, this is good. This is
Other than,
excellent. I've got to come back, and I want to interview you because you guys are lucky to have Chuck here.
oh
I
my,
call him the Chuckster.
the Chuck the Chuckster.
You're lucky to have Chuckster. So yeah, I appreciate the time. I appreciate you inviting me here to your platform, and I'll see you guys another time.
Awesome. Folks, this has been the HR and Leadership Spotlight Show. I am Chuck the Chuckster, as Liza has said. And if you are someone that wants to get your message out, if you're an HR professional, if you're a leadership professional, maybe you're an entrepreneur, maybe you want to share your message, give me a shout out. My contact information, and in fact, Liza's contact information should be right there in the show notes below. So we'd love to have you on the show. Folks, thanks for joining us. Liza Dunn, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
All right, bye.
Bye bye.